Hello and welcome to the Soul Elevation Podcast, guiding your ascension to new heights. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin. And let me just check something really quickly. I just had an experience where my microphone was muted, and I wanted to make sure that that wasn't the case right now. So thank you so much for being here. Today is Friday, November 21st, and I want to share some insights and direct experience that I've been having in terms of the way that spiritual insights come to us and how it's different than how we might experience our understandings and our learning and our memories in the traditional human experience that we have in this 3D world. And I'll start with my own story of how I've experienced this. And the purpose of this is to illustrate that things really don't happen in the spiritual sense in such a linear fashion. And and I want us to be able to be more open to the insights that are coming through and how they might show up um, in, let me see, is that Rachel? Hey, Rachel. Oh my gosh, you have been, I'm sorry to stop for a minute, but I think Rachel Chamness is chiming in. Yay, it's Rachel. Oh my gosh, you've been front and center. You've come up so much this week. So I'm going to have to connect with you later on this because you're like in my field for big time. Um, but this way that I have experienced the non-linearity of insights coming in, of spiritual insights coming in. And in our human experience, we may learn something or understand something from what feels like start to end, from beginning to end. And I've had such profound experiences, particularly in the month of November. And I would be really curious for whether you're watching this live or you're catching the replay later. I would love to hear if this resonates with you because I feel like it's in the field. So, as I talk about this, I'd love for you to think into yourself, your own experience, and share with me if this is something that you're experiencing too, because I don't think it's just me. But there's this non-linearity and it seems like it's this spiral of the way that spiritual remembrance or spiritual insights are coming through. And again, that's very different from the start stop, like here's the beginning, here's the end. And I've had a couple of big experiences later, not later, recently, where when I try to later explain them, I am like, okay, just stay with me because we're going to be kind of all over the place. We're going to jump, to a few weeks ago, then we're going to jump back 25 years ago, then we're going to jump back to ancient times. And then I'm going to be moving forward again into the present moment because everything kind of comes together in that way. And that's just how things have unfolded. And so one experience that I've had with this was just a couple of weeks ago. I think, yeah, I was in Berlin. My family had taken a quick trip to Berlin, Germany. And I'd never been to Berlin before. And I decided to take the book Communion by Whitley Strieber with me. Is that how you say his name? Whitley. I think that's the correct last name. Whitley is an ET experiencer. He's been around for a long time. If you know much about ET contact, you very well know this book and you've come across Whitley. And I've known about this book and I've known about Whitley for a long time, but I've just never read this book. And I had a podcast guest on shortly before I left for my trip, and she mentioned Whitley's book and a specific thing that had really spoken to her about that book. And for some reason, it just, at this point, even though it wasn't the first time I'd heard about it, it really struck a chord with me. And I was like, I want to read this book. So I get the book just in time to take it with me to go to Berlin. And even though this was such a short trip, I got through quite a bit of this book while I was in Berlin. And so what's really interesting is we were in Berlin at the anniversary of the Berlin Wall coming down. And what's funny is that there was no I didn't see anything marking the anniversary of the Berlin Wall coming down the whole time that we were in the city. We were doing a lot of touristy things, and I never came across, like, the date apart from when we went to see the remnants, what is remaining of the Berlin Wall. I found one little plaque that told the date of when the wall came down. Now, I have a personal memory of being at my dad's house and seeing on the news Reagan saying, tear down that wall, tear down this wall. And it was this momentous moment. And I even remember watching this, and I think that the comment, like the news people were talking about like how historic this moment was. And I think I was 11 years old at the time. And I remember watching it. And at the time I'm watching, I'm like, wow, I'm watching history. Like I'll always remember this. And so this was I believe it was 1989. And so as I'm walking through, like walking through the wall, walking past the wall, and kind of taking in the history. And again, I'd never been there before, but there's this part of me that's connecting to that memory, that's connecting to an 11-year-old version of myself. And I'm also connecting back to that time period in human history. So there it was like I was in the year 2025, but my consciousness was also in the 80s, the mid to late 80s, as like I'm remembering back to my own personal memories of this. And I'm just kind of, there was definitely this dance happening between, of course, I was present in 2025 physically, but then a big part of my consciousness was going back to that age and that period of time. So I, again, start reading Whitley's book in the time that in Berlin. And Whitley's book, his abduction, his ET experience takes place in the mid 80s. So a big portion of his book is connected to the 80s. He's talking about the dates, he's talking about like specific months and dates. I think 85 was kind of the big his first big memory of something happening and him being hypnotized, but there's a lot of references to the mid 80s in this book. So as I'm walking around the city, I've got my own memories of the connecting me back to that age and that period of time on Earth's history. Then I'm reading Whitley's book, and that also is reinforcing that time period of the mid 80s. It's making me think back to my own experience of that time and be connected to that child that was alive during that time period. Whitley's book is a lot about remembering these experiences. And he realized that he'd been having these experiences long before that initial one in 85, and they went back even to his childhood. So in Whitley's experience that he's writing about, he's also writing about remembering and being in a hypnotized state, connecting back to his own childhood, which took him back to that age of, I think for him it was like 10, 9 or 10 or something of his own age. So then as I'm reading through this book, Whitley is connecting to the experiences that he's had as an ET contactee as an adult. Then he's spontaneously connecting back to his childhood self at about the age of 10, I think, somewhere in that sort of age. Which again, as I was reading Whitley's book and as I was walking around Berlin, I was connecting to myself at that same sort of age. One of the things that he keeps coming back to in that book is the suppressed memories that we have, and how a lot of contactees have been having contact for a long time, but they don't remember it. And one thing that I remember from his book is he talked about it. This resonated so much with me. The full, like that there are these experiences that we have that get folded into our consciousness, and we don't remember them. but they're there in the folds of our consciousness. Now, this is another way to think about the shadow and just memories that we don't have access to. But I have a very strong connection with sacred geometry. This is how I experience energy a lot of times is through sacred geometry. And when he talked about these memories living in the folds of consciousness, that really activated something within me of like the geometry that I know that I am beyond this human, and that geometry has a lot of folds. It's got a lot of angles. It's got these ways that there are parts of it that you can see, but then there are parts of it that are, angles. You can think of that as there being these folds. It's not very easy for me to put language to, but it was this sense and this landing of that was so profound. Now, for me personally, I don't particularly have memories of being a contactee as a child. I have more memories of it as an adult, and even those are not they're not like I mean, I know the nights that I have perceived that I was not alone. I've perceived that I'm being worked on. I can perceive the physical sensations within me, the vibrations. I've like palpable vibrations at the chakra points one at a time. And there have been times where I have it- it's hard for me to say physically felt because it's an energetic sense, but it's so palpable that I feel that there are beings that are working on me. And I know I'm still in bed, and I've even, like, opened my eyes expecting, like, I think if I open my eyes, I'm actually gonna see the beings who I can feel, and then I can't see them with my physical eyes. I have seen some things with my inner sight, some ET beings, but I don't have access to the information about who these beings are. I've a lot of them I've noticed, or a lot of the things that I have perceived, there've been some praying mantis, and there have been, I don't even know, maybe Syrians, maybe Andromedans, but like a bluish purple, skin with like no hair and kind of a smallish head and very, very thin, very thin. But I really don't know. I don't get the insight about where they're from or who they are or what their names are. And I have in my mind's eye seen some more traditional, like what you would think of the gray aliens. And then, I mentioned Rachel Chamness in the start of this when I had her on the podcast. She talked about the blue avian beings and the connection with them, and I've had some connection with them in the dream time, but not so. I don't remember having connection with them in these other kind of hypnagogic experiences. So so as an adult, I've had more experiences that I have been conscious of, and I know that there's a lot that I don't remember in those experiences. Sometimes things are happening so fast that I can either try to like remember them. I'd be curious if anybody can relate to this. Like I'm like trying to hold on to the memory as it's happening, but things are happening very, very fast. And there's like a part of my brain and consciousness that I have to shift into to know that I'll be able to remember it, or I can just experience it and then things happen really, really fast, but I know I'm going to forget. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's been my experience. A similar type of thing where my clairaudience has come in and I'll be hearing this language, and I'm trying to decipher if it's English, if it's another language. Sometimes it sounds like maybe it's an Asian, like a Japanese or Chinese, and I'm just trying to tune into it, but if I try to categorize it and I try to, like, decipher what it is, then Rachel's saying the blue avian can sound like that. Um, but when I try to, like, think about it and decipher and decide like, oh, this is an earth language, or if it's like a star language, something that I've heard other people do light language. Once I get into that type of my brain where I'm analyzing, I can't hear it anymore. And so then I shift back into, okay, let me let go of the trying to analyze it. I'm sure there's like some left brain, right brain stuff going on here. But when it's like, okay, I'll just experience it, then I can hear it again. But then it turns off when I try to analyze it. So all of that to say that those types of experiences have, yeah, Rachel saying the left brain, right brain can be a hindrance. Um, so my experiences have been really more in the last few years, the things that I have access to, but I do feel that I have had contact from when I was a child, but I don't remember it. I don't have conscious memory of it. It I remember being very afraid for a long time, being very afraid at nighttime. But in the 80s, there was a lot of focus on ETs. There were a lot of stories and focus on ET abductions. You'd have them on, like, there was this talk show, daytime talk show like Geraldo, and there was Ricky Lake, and these were very, very popular in the 80s, or maybe it was the 90s, and crop circles were really big. But I feel like from a culture, like a pop culture perspective, there was a lot more there were a lot more stories and experiences that people were sharing about ET abductions. It was just very, very hot at that time. And so I always kind of thought, oh, I'm hearing other people talk about this and it's making me afraid that it will happen to me, versus having these experiences and thinking, like, I'm afraid because I know that this has happened to me. Now, with the timing of everything that I went through when I was in Berlin and all of it coming together and connecting me back to this age of like 11 years old and that sort of time, I feel that there was a bigger part of my consciousness that was connecting to these ET contact experiences. Now, again, I didn't really have distinct memories come in. It was more of a resonance. It was more of these pieces, these bigger moving parts that were like, wow, the age of around 11 is coming in really strong. In this time period, it coincides with when I'm reading this book about ET abductions, and and lots of other just pieces to this that were resonant and kind of building this suggestion within my bigger reality that there was some ET contact when I was younger, and that I have yet to remember those. So this is still ongoing. I don't feel that I have solved it or resolved it. Um, but this is one example of how these memories have been coming in and they've worked across time and space, and they're building out a picture. And through the ability to recognize patterns, I'm noticing the similarities and receiving some suggestions from the universe that's helping me to understand myself in a bigger way. And again, I've had other experiences like this that I'm not going to go into those right now because again, they're so circuitous. It's so expansive, and there are so many components and layers to it that it takes a long time to be able to convey it. But I wanted to bring this up because, again, you may be noticing that there are patterns and themes that are coming up that connect to each other. And you may be seeing them right now as separate, as like, oh, this is coming up. And isn't that a coincidence because it's relating to this, even if it's in another, if it's part of your childhood or it was part of, past relationship that it feels like a million years ago, or if it's like, sometimes these things come up and they relate to people that I haven't talked to in, decades, since high school, for example. and they're coming in my field really strong, and their memories coming up, and that to me is, it's not only helping me to build out an understanding of deeper, bigger things that I hadn't made connections about, but a lot of times it's pointing me to opportunities where I can heal things. I can work on my own healing. I can work on healing relationships that just kind of got, we just moved on, but we didn't actually, but there was never any real closure or any healing, any completion that happened. And as we go through our ascension journey and our spiritual evolution, then we have that opportunity to clear things out, to resolve things, to help things come to completion, and we can do that energetically. And so that's been a big thing that's come up for me too. So that was what I wanted to share today. And like I said, I'm really curious if you're if you're experiencing things like this too, because I know that I've I am hearing from other people that there are similar themes happening with a lot of people right now. So this could be an opportunity for you to tune into this and get some of your own healing going and some completion, and be able to clear some things out, and maybe have some soul memories and remembrances that can come to the surface. So thank you so much for being here. It's such a blessing to be with you. I hope that you have a wonderful week ahead. Let me quickly mention that I have the Miracle Summit coming up on December 6th. I keep mentioning Rachel Chamness, who's been here in the chat. She's going to be one of the guest speakers. We've got amazing guest speakers in addition to Rachel. She says, "Woot, can't wait." We've got Amanda Romania, Julie Ryan, um, Aubrey, Nicole, Baba Sam Shelley, who I just released his episode yesterday. You've got to check that out. He's the Baba Sam, the Miracle Man. Um, Lots and lots of speakers. It's really hard for me to access everybody. Helen Yeaplin, when I'm just off the top of my head. But really, this is going to be very powerful. You don't want to miss it. It's free. You can join it. I'll try to remember to put the link in the show notes here. And if you can upgrade to the VIP, I highly recommend doing that, because it gives you a chance to go deeper with each speaker. And these speakers are powerful, and you're going to want to take the opportunity to connect with them more, and maybe, from there, then you want to, and you can engage with them further as you go deeper with each of them. So such a blessing to be a part of this, and I hope that you'll join us. Have a beautiful weekend. Thank you so much for being here, and I bless you. Thank you.